2023, the tickets to the Bruno Silva show, Matt, they're free. You want them?
I mean, I'm good.
Nobody wants them anymore. Bruno Silva coming up this weekend, the former M1 Global Middleweight Champ. He's going to be taking on the Ultimate Fighter Season 11 alum, Brad Tavares. And when you have a look at this fight, Matt, for Bruno Silva, I say that with the tickets, with the expired scratchers from Christmas like 3 years ago. I don't know why they're still in the spare room, but they were. When you look at a guy like Bruno Silva, he was riding a wave of momentum. He beat Alexander Shlemenko. He beat Artem Frolov. And then he comes over to the UFC, doesn't pass the USADA test, bold and own in its metabolites, so a couple of years of sussies. But when you have a look at it, he beats former training partner Wellington Turman in the first round. He beats Andrew Sanchez in a crazy third-round comeback, gets a performance bonus. He beats Jordan Wright in the first round, performance bonus. He loses to Alex Pereira, but he gives him everything he's got. And his last time out against Gerald Mearshart, he showed up with his head shaved and a goatee, and he looked like a shell of himself. And in the second round, he was huffing and a puffing. It was a Bruno we haven't really seen before, and I don't know if that's the norm now. I don't know if Alex Pereira beat the soul out of Bruno Silva, but Gerald Mearshart certainly did.
He did, yeah.
He throws a hook, he drops Silva, and then he just kind of gets on top, gets a guillotine, and that's all she wrote.
Would you agree with me that all three fights at the top of this card are kind of fights between polar opposites? Because in this fight, we have Brad Tavares, who is kind of a picture of consistency, right? He's going to fight kind of at the same pace, not really get outside of himself, fight by the basics, not do anything that really wows you. Whereas Bruno Silva
His leg kicks are very good.
But Bruno Silva's going to burn very hot. There's big looping power shots. Can carry his power late, although I wouldn't say he has incredible cardio.
I don't know.
No, that's what I mean. He carries his power late, but his output doesn't continue to be very high.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong.
He'll still throw the heavy shots and they can still land, but I don't think he's going to win a third round against a guy like Brad Tavares. I think Tavares' straight shots down the middle are really going to disrupt some of the rhythm of a guy like Bruno Silva. But that's why I think this fight is so interesting, because if Silva does go out there and throw at the very high pace to make Brad Tavares uncomfortable, we've seen Tavares get tagged early on in fights before. He's one of these guys who, if you let him get comfortable into a fight, kind of settle into the rhythm, then he does become a handful, because again, he doesn't make a lot of big mistakes. But if you do make him uncomfortable early and really start to make him back up, then he won't really throw with a lot of output. He won't get into that rhythm. And we saw Edmund Shabazian do it. Yes, Edmund was able to mix in a kick, whereas Bruno is much more likely to do it with the hands, but still, you can catch Tavares cold early on in fights, and I'll be interested to see if Silva has that mentality of, hey, come with a big storm early and try to get him out of there quick.
And I mean, Silva was about a 3-1 favorite his last time out, and now the bottom's completely fallen out of Bruno Silva. One bad performance and your chopped liver, but he did look really, really bad. And I know, you carry it forward and you look at Gerald Mearshart his last time out against Joe Pyfer, he got starched, so it really doesn't look good for Bruno Silva. Now, for Silva, I mean, Evelu Sao Tai, he's trained out of the States a little bit in certain fights at certain points, but he definitely has a very high strength of schedule with his training partners. Look at his main guy, Bruno Ferreira, who was able to get a win over, oh my gosh, Gregory Rodriguez in the UFC. But for Silva, it is the big hooks. The only pushback that I have is against Andrew Sanchez. He gets taken down. He throws less than 15 significant strikes in the first round and the second round. 55 in the third round.
But that's my point. He didn't work a lot in those 2 rounds, so it's hard to work outside of your own pace.
But you're getting outpaced with the wrestling, and that's taxing on a guy like Silva, where Silva comes out and he had all sorts of zip to the shots. The power was there. He gets kind of a standing TKO knockout win over Sanchez after dropping him, and Sanchez gets back up. It's just for Silva, the highs are high, the low is low. And for a guy like Brad Tavares, he's fought a who's who, a cast of characters inside of the UFC. 14-7 in the UFC. He went 7-1 to start off that career.
And the Dricus fight was a close one.
And that's the thing that I want to say. Like, you talk about follow-ups. Like, if there was a runner-up to a fight of the night, I said it to start off the show. Brian Barberena, Robbie Lawler, gut fight of the night. But Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis. And you guys, Twitter and Reddit, they don't like Dricus du Plessis all of a sudden because he's putting his name out there for that middleweight title shot. But that fight that Brad Tavares had against du Plessis, they put it on each other. And I know du Plessis and his coach had talked about, wow, he couldn't get the oxygen in through his nose.
That's not really how it works.
But a guy like Brad Tavares, the leg kicks, he didn't give up. He didn't get knocked out. He really did have a good shot. And before that, the 2 wins, he sent Shoeface to the PFL. He also sent Omari Akhmedov to the PFL. So for Brad Tavares, it's the leg kicks, it's the steady wrestling. He is a prototypical extreme couture guy that has wrestling in his back pocket, but likes to strike, has good output, and he's going to test Bruno Silva in some of those areas where we've seen Silva tested in the UFC, but Gerald Mearshart was able to beat him. by striking. I know he submitted him, but
it's kind of wild
with his striking. So Bruno Silva's got to get back on the hill. Brad Tavares, again, he's a guy that's kind of been around for a very, very long time. He even dropped Talis Leites with those leg kicks. Tavares is favored ever so slightly in the matchup. Silva open to plus 110. He's a plus 135. Brad Tavares open minus 130. He's a minus 167. We have a look at the Topology votes, Matt. Surprise to us as they are to you. The tickets have left. The train has left the station. I'm going to say over under 70% Brad Tavares.
I think it'll be under.
It's going to be under ever so slightly. 764 total votes, 65% Tavares, 86% by decision. For the 35% that have Silva, 64% by knockout. Do you have Steady Eddie Tavares or Bruno Silva?
Brad Tavares is going to win this fight until he gets hurt. Is that a fair statement to make? He could get hurt in, like, the 90th second. Or he could get hurt with a second left in the fight and win. You know, like, I think he's going to win a lot of those in-betweens outside of the big actions. Now, could Silva hurt him with a big hook? Could he threaten with some submissions even if Brad Tavares goes for a takedown? Yes, I think he could have some of those actions. But I think it is going to be very difficult for Silva to go through and win a decision against a guy like Brad Tavares. So, not that I'm discounting Silva's opportunities to win this fight, but Tavares is a very steady fighter. And sometimes that does get him caught because he doesn't fight at this crazy pace where he's really going to wow you and look like a Max Holloway against a Calvin Kattar. But I think a fighter like that is going to pose Bruno Silva issues, and that's why I do a Brad Tavares.
And I think Tavares is a really smart pick in this one. Yoel Romero was able to stun and drop Brad Tavares. Tim Boach was able to do it. You were able to see Whitaker do it. I mean, Shabazian was able to do it early. I think Bruno Silva is going to be able to get back in. So people are going to laugh at me in the comment sections, I'm sure. I'm terrible at picking fights right now in the last month, but I'm going with Bruno Silva. Give me Blindado in the matchup. We're split on the pick. Matt, we have 2 fights left on this card. Song Yadong is taking on Ricky Simone in the main event. Sergei Pavlovich taking on Curtis Blaydes. You're not going to want to miss it. Just keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.